Revelation Wellness Community. Brian East here, filling in for Elisa Keaton, and have a special guest today that we're going to be talking with, Ryan George. And he is an author of 3 books. Most recently, I gotta hold up the book, Scared to Life. And he is a hiker and a paraglider and an adventurer. And that's some of what we're going to talk about. He's been to check this out, guys, all 7 continents, the North Pole and the South Pole. So can't wait to learn more about it. And I guess you live with your family in the Blue Ridge Mountains, yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, welcome, Ryan.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Well, tell us about yourself. Tell us about this book. That is definitely a hook of a title. And and what's behind the book? Why did you write it?
Yeah, so what I found in my travels around the globe, and particularly in the adrenaline rushes, I go out on the wings of airplanes while they're doing aerobatic maneuvers. I jump off of buildings, bridges, mountains, whatever. I've surfed in the Arctic Circle. I've dug out a snow camp in Antarctica and slept in the snow. And a lot of things that aren't quite to that level in between, right? But as I've gone on these adventures, I found that when I am uncomfortable, when I am scared, when I am doubtful, that I find more of the heart of Jesus than when I'm not, right? And so it makes sense, in Romans it says the just shall live by faith. Well, you can't have faith unless you have at least a little bit of fear and a little bit of doubt, or both. And so many times in church setting, we're trying to be more comfortable, and we're trying to have things as steady and as safe as possible. But what I found is that in the hardest moments of my life is where I've drawn closest to my Father. And so I wanted to tell stories about what I've learned on all those continents and all those trips and those weird moments where it's not normal to walk into a Christian bookstore and see a story about what bungee jumping taught you about how to do small groups, right? Like, and I figure I had an interesting story. I go to a very interesting church. So my pastors are all grand adventurers. One flies experimental aircraft. One used to race motorcycles and is a wilderness guide. One used to be an ice climber and a whitewater kayaker. One of my mentors is a whitewater guide. Adventure is built into the fabric of our church.
Wow.
And it's used into our faith. And as I talk to more people in my travels, friends, family, whatever, like, that's not normal. You should write a book about that. So that's what I did.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there's a line in the book, and I got to write down and read it. Addressing the suspicion that there's more to the Christian life than is being experienced today. Can you talk around that? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that. I mean, you mentioned kind of the Christian bookstore, but what there's more to the Christian life. Like, what you're talking about the adrenaline junkie stuff and what you're learning, but what is the kind of the average Christian life missing in that sense?
It's funny. So one of my buddies gave his life to Christ, and I got the pleasure of baptizing him several years ago.
Awesome.
And he come out of Harley culture and a lot of outdoor stuff. And he told us, he said, I didn't know that being a Christian and being a cool dude was possible. Like, I thought those are mutually exclusive, because in his church experience, and in the church I grew up in as well, is very old school church, like safety and comfort were, there were high values. Like, how many times have you heard a pastor or a teacher or someone in your faith pray for safety? And then go to the Bible and see how many times that Jesus prayed that. He didn't. And right. He knew, over and over again, I have not gone through encounter myself. People say there's 300 and some iterations of don't fear, fear not, or do not be afraid in the Bible. And what I tell people is those are in there not because we're not supposed to be afraid, but because in those moments, that was the appropriate human reaction that God had to be like, yes, that is what you're feeling right now, but here's why you don't need to stay in that place.
That's good.
And so I think a lot of people, they come to church hoping to feel better about themselves or their community, or to get a little bit better at their anger problem or their finances or their whatever their addiction is. And Jesus is like, no, I came to give you a whole new life. I didn't come to improve your life. I came here to take you from death to life. And so the places where I felt most alive, this seems ironic, are the places where I've risked my life the most. The first time I
Wow.
went wing walking out on, we go out on a 1943 Boeing Stearman. It's an old plane. It's not even a metal plane. It's that old. It's got fabric written around it. And we go and walk out on the wings of the plane, do loops and barrel rolls and flips and stuff. And we got back down on the ground, and my classmates were like, "How was it?" And I yelled out, "I've never felt more alive."
Mm,
But it's the
yeah.
same thing in my faith. It's the times when I felt closest to Jesus and most connected to his mission, the Great Commission, is when I took huge risks. When he put a prompting on my heart, I was like, "Oh, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to do that." And I leaned into it
Right.
anyway.
Right.
And I've gotten to baptize people, and I've gotten to disciple people, and I've got to walk on journeys with people who have made these massive surrenders for Jesus. And what I found is that those moments feel just like the moments after I've been upside down in an airplane or a glider or
Mm,
whatever. And so for
wow.
me, it's not mutually exclusive between my faith and physical adventure. It's all adventure. It's more spiritual here some days, and it's more physical here some days, but they're both wrapped up in each other.
Yeah. Hmm. Wow. That's awesome stuff. You're you're like totally you're like one of our people. I don't know if you're familiar. We have a whole Rev Wild
Yeah.
program, and that's it's kind of the stuff you're talking about. It's getting a group and going out in the wilderness and connecting with God, and learning how to lead others into that experience. And Rim to Him is another one where it's go down into the Grand Canyon, rim to rim,
Mm.
and we rim to Him, right? It's the same kind of thing. It's a wilderness hiking kind of experience, and lots of God encounters in that. So you should come join us.
There we go. Well, so I'm a big subscriber to the concept of spiritual pathways. So depending on which resource you read, there's 7 or 9 different ways that we relate to God, almost like love languages for
Oh, wow.
dating couples. And I take the test every few years because the numbers change a little bit. But my primary pathway is nature. So there are
Mm,
people in my church who don't feel closest to God outside, but I would say at least half the time when I'm praying, I'm outside. And
yeah.
I go hiking several days a week. I have to do a lot of physical preparation for some of these adventures to be
Oh, yeah. I
ice
bet. I bet.
climbing or mountain climbing, whatever. And I'll have my headphones in, listen to worship music. I'm crying, trying to pray. I got my arms out, listening to scripture or Christian audiobooks or whatever. And so I feel closest to God in that. For other people, my wife, not so much, right? Her
Mm,
primary pathway is activism. So she'll do courageous things that I would never do. Go sit with the homeless or with prostitutes in Managua, Nicaragua, or move towards dysfunction in a relationship that just as a dude, I'm just like, oh man, that scares me to death. But she wouldn't go out on the wings of an
mm.
airplane with me.
Right.
And my brother and I have bungee jumped together, but he's like, I'm good. That's my last one. But that dude will eat stuff that I would never even try. Right. So we all have different lanes of courage. And then within each of those lanes, we have different spectrums of how much
Mm,
we do. And I know
hmm.
people who are more spiritually courageous than I'll ever be. And they wouldn't race a car at 180 miles an hour like I would, but they would go places and say things and move into relational moments that would just scare the heck out of me.
Hmm. Hmm. It's you got me thinking. I'm
Good.
process. I'm processing internally, but it's there's a lot of motivational stuff floating around out there about get out of your comfort zone and that kind of thing, and the best things are on the other side of your comfort zone. All true, but I think even that is kind of pacified, and when we think about the gospel and how much just risk and kind of that adrenaline thing, whether it's building relationship with people, or you know straight out just reaching out to someone and sharing God's love with them, sharing Jesus with them. I'm thinking through the gospels, and Jesus on his mission and doing the things he did and confronting the things he confronted, and then gathering others around him and saying, okay, that stuff I've been doing, I'm going to send you out to do the same thing. Like cast out demons, raise the dead, no big deal. And
Right.
I'm I'm what doing what now? I mean, that sounds kind of risky and
But
adventuresome.
it's contagious. It becomes like in the same in the Gospels, and then obviously in the book of Acts, as it is in
Hmm.
adventure sports, there becomes this peer pressure And when you see other people making a big surrender in their faith, you go, oh man,
Mm,
I want to be like that. That's
right.
somebody I want to be, and then I've been that for somebody else, intentionally or not. Sometimes people are like, oh man, you just need to know, like, I was scared to do this until I saw you and your
Mm,
wife do it or whatever.
yeah.
What I pray over people is not that that wouldn't be scary and not that it wouldn't be hard. I ask Jesus that they would be rewarded the same way I am rewarded, like when I do a bungee jump or whatever, is that
Hmm.
you have all this euphoria and body chemicals running through. And so
Yeah.
when I have found in my personal faith is that the reward to those scary surrenders and obedience moments leads to that same type of euphoria. You feel connected to something bigger than yourself. You feel God so close,
Mm,
because if they obey and then feel that, just like my adrenaline rushes become habit forming, those moments of surrender and obedience become habit forming because they know that there's reward coming. And then you're more
right.
likely the next time you get an assignment from the Holy Spirit to go, well, it was scary, but last time it sure paid off. So I'm going to go. And they
Right.
don't always pay off, right? Some of my adventures don't pay
Sure.
off.
Yeah.
And some of
Yeah.
my spiritual assignments don't pay off as well, that I can see. Maybe I'll see it in heaven. But yeah, I hope that it draws us together, but it also pushes us out at the same time.
Yeah. Mm, wow. So we're talking about kind of leaning back to the adventure side of things. Some of our listeners, particularly some of our Rev Wild crew, maybe like, um, but even the non-adventurous types, well, I don't have the money to climb mountains and jump off airplanes and go to Antarctica and roll up in the snow and, all that kind of stuff. What would you suggest for the low budget, and how can we cultivate adventure, I guess, in kind of our normal everyday Christian life kind of thing.
Yes, I mean, obviously, going to some of those far-flung places, I had to cash in a lot of American Express points for my business to go. That's how I afford to go on these. Not everybody has those points sitting there,
Right.
But a lot of the adventures I go on are free, right? And especially the spiritual ones. And I didn't write the book to try to get people, Christians or not, to go out on the wings of an airplane or jump off mountains like I do.
Hmm.
What I was hoping was that they would see these whispers from the Holy Spirit, or hear them or feel them, or however you wanted to describe it, and lean into those, because we all know maybe 1% at most of your audience is going to go wing walking with me someday, right? Like
Right.
less than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 100% of your audience, you and me included, have something of a whisper of the Holy Spirit, an assignment in the back of our heads
Mm.
that we're afraid to do. It's an apology to go back to someone in college that you were very unkind to, and
Oh,
apologize, or maybe
yeah.
it's to
Watch
confess a
out.
sin to somebody, or go across the street. Your neighbor has a different politician sign in their yard and make them cookies and say, hey, we love you, and
Mm.
we hope you have a good November, right? Those are small, those are
Yeah.
small things, but Jesus said, this was our sermon at our church yesterday, was we will be known for our love.
Mm.
And when you love, it's an adventure. Yesterday, my wife got a phone call or a text during church. She picked it up after the service and looked down, and it was some woman, that a single mom that she had met several months ago, didn't go to our church, not like a good friend or anything. And she said, hey, I'm a single mom. I've got to go to the emergency room. Can you come watch my kids for the afternoon? And my wife scrapped her whole plans and went and ministered to those kids and their mom, right? We're going to be interrupted like that all the time. And we don't get the big fun stuff unless we do
Yeah.
those everyday assignments. My
Mm.
buddy Johnny was teaching me how to whitewater kayak. I was very nervous. I still am nervous whitewater kayaking. And he would ask me, because I'm self-employed. He would just all the time. He's like, hey, I got a day off. You want to go? And I had work to do. I was like, no, Johnny, I can't go today. And over time, it became more no, Johnny, than yes, Johnny, until there was a point they were
Mm.
all, I'm sorry, Johnny. Well, eventually, Johnny stopped asking, not because we aren't still buds, not because he hated me or anything. Why waste the time to get a no?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not going to put Jesus into that small of a human thing, but why would he give us another assignment if we're not done the last one he gave us, or if we haven't welcomed the last invitation that he gave us? And
Yeah.
so what I would challenge everybody is, maybe it's sitting with the uncool kids at dinner or whatever, taking a difficult personality in your church out for ice cream. It could be any of those things. And the point is not the adventure. The point is the obedience,
Mm.
because the reward, the point for all the stuff that I do in the sky isn't to be scared. The point is what I feel after I'm scared.
Mm. Hmm.
I would love for your listeners to embrace that and go, yeah, Jesus is going to reward this. Someday they might be on the same street as heaven as you because you were kind enough to take them out to lunch, and
Right.
or whatever the inconvenient thing is. Most of the things
Right.
that Jesus did in people's lives, they were inconveniencing him or interrupting one of his speeches
Yeah.
or his
Yeah.
walks or whatever. So what I'm hoping people do is to lean into those distractions, to lean into those assignments.
Yeah. I made a note here about you called it scary surrender,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of rolling with the interruption kind of thing. Ah, that's so good. Bungee jumping in New Zealand, you write about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it said that experience felt you or left you feeling connected with eternity and worshipful and really connected uh, with God and with His Spirit in that sense. Can you talk about that experience and how does that kind of expand out into all the stuff we're talking about?
Well, I would say most of my adventures, that is an overarching principle, is that I feel, Jesus let me be born at a time when there's vendors to do these things. I could be clipped into a harness, right? He let me
Hmm.
be born when there's Google to find it, Instagram to be inspired by it. Where I was really moved by bungee was not so much the presence of Jesus, although I felt that at other adrenaline rushes, was that if you cut a bungee cord, a commercial bungee cord, what you'll find is it's not one big cord. Like we think it's like the ones we strap down our bikes on a truck or something.
Right.
It's actually like 200 strands all woven together, so that
Mm.
if 3 or 5 or 10 of them fray on the bounce, you're still fully the friction of those against each other, even if they're frayed at any point, is strong enough to hold way more than your weight. And so what I came home with was this idea that I'm not strong enough to rebound from the hard things in my life, the big falls, the big drops, the heavy things in my life. But if I am rubbing up against the lives of other believers that Jesus has intentionally woven into my life and
Hmm.
spread around me, and you have to do life with them, right? You have to know each other's weaknesses, you have to know each other's
Yeah.
joys, you have to know each other's proclivities. When you open yourself up and are vulnerable to that and weave yourself into those lives, all of you, even when life frays and it's falling apart and it feels scary, the strength of you all to get, no one of you, no 10 of you, no 20 of you could hold that
Mm.
weight, but all of you together you can. So it was a picture to me of the body of Christ, how we're supposed to be wrapped around each other and be there for each other in the hardest moments. And
Yeah.
I came home from that, and one of my several years after that, I started a spiritual adventure community. And it started because I was going through a hard season, and my one of my best friends was having one of the hardest summers of his life. And we just wrapped our arms physically. We were praying for each other, spent the
Hmm.
summer doing that. And then other guys were like, hey, can we get on that? And last Wednesday night, there was 20 some guys around picnic tables here at our local pavilion because we're
Mm.
doing that for each other, right? We're rubbing our lives against each other. And so I'm looking, when I go on any of these adventures, I'm going, Jesus, where can I find you? There's a difference between going hiking and going looking for Jesus while I hike, right?
Oh, oh, say that again. That's good.
Yeah, there's a difference between going hiking and saying, Jesus, I'm going to go look for you while I hike. Or for me, I'm going to look for you when I go jump out of an airplane, or I'm going to look
Hmm.
for your presence when I'm ice climbing or whatever. What can I learn about you today? And
Yeah.
when we do that, especially when we do that in community, when we say, okay, all right, guys, this week, we're going to dare each other to be this, whatever character trait for our wives. Let's go
Mm.
do it. We'll meet next Wednesday and see how you did. When you do that in community, and it strengthens everybody, and the
Yeah.
rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Wow. That's really good. You mentioned your family.
Mm-hmm.
So you're married and you have a daughter, is that right?
Yeah, she's at college. We just took her back a week ago.
Oh man. Yeah. That's how old my kids are too.
I
Uh,
see.
that's all this gray hair we got going on.
Yeah, I like
um,
it. I people think I'm smarter now that I have gray hair, so I'll take it.
that's right. Wisdom, wisdom.
That's right.
Um, do you do well? Two things. I'm wanting to ask, kind of two part. Um, you talk about in the book fatherhood being one of your greatest adventures,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm also curious. Do you do adventures with the family, and what does that look like? Do you drag your your family all over the world bungee jumping, or what do you do together like that?
Yeah, so fatherhood definitely is the greatest adventure of my life. People used to tell me, "Oh, I can never jump out of an airplane." I was like, "Yeah, but you have 3 kids, 5 and under." And to me, that's a way bigger
Yeah.
adventure for me. Yeah, I was a reluctant dad. I wasn't trying to be a dad. I had medically taken that off the table. We weren't trying to foster or adopt. And then I was on a helicopter expedition up in British Columbia. We were stand-up paddleboarding in the mountains, and my wife got notified of a domestic violence situation. When she showed up, she called the police. The police showed up, and they're like, "Well, hey, she called you, so we're going to send her home with you." So I come back from Canada, and there was a household of 3 now. So I had a teenage
Wow.
daughter right off the bat, and that was 3 years ago, last 2 months ago. So yeah, it has been
Wow.
an adventure to learn how to be a dad. Like, go, like, there was no prep, there was no reading a book
Yeah.
about it. Like, I just come home as like, oh hey, now you're a father figure, and then
Yeah.
over time embracing that. So that has for sure been an adventure. As far as what adventure looks like with them, is different. So because our daughter came into our life when I'm already doing all this stuff, um, that's just a known variable. I didn't change that about me. I just said,
Hmm.
hey, D, I love you, and this is just part of who I am. So for her, she's nowhere near that kind of adventure. So what we do is we say, D, what would be something that would push your comfort zone just a little bit, but that
Mm.
you would really enjoy? So jumping out of an airplane would be way too big,
Right.
but getting on an air, she'd never been on an airplane. So like, all right, well, we'll give you the window seat and you get to go for your first flight. And there's several things she and
Nice.
I have done to build up to, different things. As far as with my wife, she does some of them with me. She does one of the sports I like is called canyoning. It's where you rappel waterfalls. And there's a
Ooh.
couple things she said she would do if the trips, were just right. She's more of a beach person, as is
Mm.
my daughter, and I'm not. So what we do is we just schedule. We have a couple trips a year where my wife and I find enough common interests where we can do it together. And then the rest of the year, we just give each other permission to do it with our people. So I do a lot of trips with guys in
Mm.
my church. She does a
That's
lot with her
good.
ministry leaders.
That's good.
And then we call out on each other where we see each other as brave. So my daughter is African American, and
Hmm.
some of the things that she has faced. I live about a half hour from where the South surrendered, or at least they said they surrendered 150 years ago.
Mm.
And there's racism is huge here. I mean, people don't even hide it. Um,
Wow.
People have told my daughter to her face, "Hey, can I have a white employee wait on me? I don't want to be served by a black person."
Mm.
And so she's courageous in how she responds to that, because I would have jumped across the counter and, grabbed some lapels and maybe let's go outside type of thing. It's the
Right.
least
Right.
Jesus part of me. And her
Yeah.
response showed me Jesus, right? So she's courageous in how she handles stuff like that. She's courageous in building a new life with a new family and whatever else. My wife is relationally courageous in ways that I struggle to be. And she's like, "I don't understand how you can't do this." I was like, "Well, I don't understand how you can't go out on the wings of an airplane." But so we've just learned to appreciate each other as being courageous in different ways.
Yeah. Mm. That's awesome, and I really identify with a lot of that. I have 4 kids, but 2 are adopted,
Mm,
and right out of the foster care system,
mm.
when my son was 6 and my daughter was 8, and they are 19 and 17 now.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's been quite the journey. And
For
living in
sure.
North Carolina, my 2 adopted kids are African American as well, and so
Mm,
I I can identify with a lot of what you're saying. There's been some very interesting moments over the years, but
mm, mhm. Yeah, but it's part of the adventure.
it
And
is.
I would not, it's interesting. So I see a counselor on a regular basis, check in on life and, run things through her. And she said this to me a few months ago. She said, "Ryan, you know that almost all the breakthroughs that we've had in my office have come through the filter of you being a dad. So the thing that you didn't want, and Jesus knew better and
Mm,
gave you fatherhood because he wanted to give you the gift of healing. Because look
mm,
at all these places that have healed in you and have changed your worldview and your perspective of
mhm,
politics and all this kind of stuff, is through the filter of you being a dad."
mm,
And so what I take away from that is God knows the adventure that's best for us, and he can outdream us. I had such a small dream of going to all
wow,
7 continents. And he's like, "How about, yeah, that's fine. You'll find me there. How about I give you a kid?"
wow.
Right. And so I think if we can embrace the idea that Jesus outdreams us, it it will make us less afraid of making mistakes.
Hmm.
Uh, one of my favorite, so it's a combination of two verses, but one of my favorite combination of two verses is Proverbs 25:2 says, "It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the honor of kings to uncover it." And
Right.
then in the New Testament, Jesus says, "Those who seek me will find me." So it's almost like there's this scavenger hunt, and God's
Hmm.
like, "Hey, I'm hiding a whole bunch of stuff from me, not because I'm evil, but because we're having fun. This is a scavenger hunt.
Nice.
But if you seek for me and you seek for my heart, and if you want to learn about my character, I'll reveal it, and I'll be stoked, and you will feel some sort of pleasure in finding that out about me." Right? That's what the Proverbs verse is saying. So
Hmm.
when we uncover things about God, you're like, "Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe this about you. I
That's
wasn't
right.
ready for that 10 years ago."
Hmm.
But God said, "Oh, you're ready for it in 2019," right? So, or 2021, or now. Like, there's going to be stuff in the next several months I'll probably learn that I wasn't ready to learn two,
Right.
3, 5 years ago.
Whew. That's because God parents, fathers us well.
Right?
Ah, wow. Feel like
Well,
I
and
have so
just
much
like
to
for
learn.
my daughter, like I get excited when she's excited about something. Right.
Yes.
So this might be a little weird, but my daughter's really likes the show Bob's Burgers. I never watched it in my life. I'm not a TV watcher in general. I'm outside doing stuff,
Right.
but
Right.
I would sit and watch it with her, and we'd laugh together, and it became this thing where I was like, "Oh, I know something. I love watching you laugh." To the point where her
Right.
Christmas gift a couple Christmases ago, I got us drawn into a scene from Burgers, and it's our family portrait in our living room, like that.
That's fantastic.
And I think it's the same way with Jesus. Jesus goes, "Hey, you know what? You don't have to apologize for wanting to jump out of airplanes and off of buildings and stuff. I wired you that way for the factory. I just love watching you have a good time." Now, that doesn't mean I go out and drink myself to oblivion and sleep with a whole bunch of people, whatever, because he knows that
Right.
those aren't in the long run going to be a good time for me and healthy and
Right.
whatever. But the ones that are healthy and that I can find him in, go in the mountains. He's like, "Yeah, I made these mountains for you. Come and explore. See what you see of me." Why wouldn't I'm learning as a father that I want my kids to enjoy or my daughter to enjoy what I've made possible for her. And
Hmm.
Jesus has made so much possible for us. And he just wants
Wow.
us to go explore. He doesn't want us sitting home scrolling on our phones, checking out other people's lives. He doesn't want us to be a spectator. He wants us to be a participant.
Yes.
And so he's like, "Come, go around the world, go around your city, go around your state, whatever it is, go around your circle of friends and look for me everywhere you go, and you'll find me."
Mm. Wow. That sounds like ancient wisdom right there. Like,
Yeah, it's
I
like
mean,
it's written down somewhere.
right, right. That's well, we're as we start to wind down our time. I'm curious, and you mentioned this, touched on it just briefly a few minutes ago. You are really active. You are doing all the adventurous stuff we're talking about. This is a fitness and wellness ministry, Revelation Wellness, and we bring people through various instructor trainings to lead others in becoming more fit and healthy and whole and all those things. So I'm curious, what does your workout regimen look like? How do you train for the kind of stuff that you do?
So so I use my trips as the end game of whatever my exercise routine is. So it changes according to what activity I'm going to do. So like if I'm
Mm,
preparing for a winter of ice climbing, I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff that builds up my calves, and I'm going to do a lot of indoor rock climbing to prepare my grip and my
yeah.
endurance of hanging out, right? So from, like, I don't know, September, October till probably March, you're going to find me several nights a week, probably 2 or 3 nights a week down at the rock climbing gym. When I'm training for a backpacking trip, I live about 8 minutes from a trail system that has 51 miles of mountain trails.
Mm,
And so I'll get a sand vest, and I'll hike up and down. I use all the different health apps, to track elevation change, because I'm
right.
trying to build up that stamina for that. When it's in the water, like right now, I'm practicing treading water. It sounds really weird, but I'll just jump in the deep end of the pool and put a clock on and see how long I can tread water. And then depending on what it is. So right now I'm doing stuff with my motorcycle. We're doing some off-road stuff, which requires a lot of upper body strength. So I'm in the
Wow.
weight room, lifting 2, 3 days a week. Heavy. I go heavy or high reps I alternate. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it changes. There's been times in my life where it was running. It seems kind of weird. The people down at my YMCA just must wonder what's going on in my life, because the workout will change according to what's coming up.
Right, right.
uh, going to Antarctica, we were snowshoeing, so that wasn't a lot of elevation change. It was just a lot of straight line, right? So it's just endurance. So how you train depends on what it is. What's funny is sometimes I've trained totally wrong because I didn't know. I was training for something to do it for the first time, and I just made assumptions on what I would need.
Oh, wow.
But I found swimming laps is pretty good overall for endurance. I
Hmm.
can do a lot of different things from paragliding and hang gliding, and one of the sports I like is called via ferrata, which is where you climb mountains on ladder systems. And so it's really hard to train on ladders for 1,800 feet up. But if you
I
can
bet.
train that motion of your shoulders coming over and your hands coming over,
Yeah.
so what you do is I watch some videos on Instagram or on YouTube of the people participating in the sport, and I try to figure out what parts of the body do I need to work on to build that kind
Wow.
of strength, and is it high rep or is it short intensity heavy weight?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it changed. I'd love to give you my system, but the system changes all the time.
Yeah. Well, that makes total sense. And I think it's brilliant. It's kind of like being on the football team and watching films, to prepare for, how do we need to prepare for the next game here? You're watching how's he using his shoulder? What do I need to train?
And I'm not a good athlete. I didn't play sports growing up. I was homeschooled as a kid. My parents were ministers, and so the games that were on Sundays I couldn't play. So
Mm,
I'm having to re-engineer this. As I learned how to play basketball at 31 years old, so or 30 years old.
wow.
Yeah, and so like it's interesting that I didn't know this stuff. I don't have the coordination of a lot of my friends. Um, but sometimes, I explained this to a friend yesterday, sometimes being inefficient at it actually makes it a better workout.
Mm,
Right? Because you're having to use more muscle to compensate for your lack of correct motion and mechanics. So yeah, so I get sometimes maybe a little bit better workout than I should be because I'm not doing it well.
yeah, that makes sense. That's wow. You got me
And it
thinking.
helps you get through the parts. So here's the other part. If you just say, hey, I'm just going to go running, I'm going to try to do, and I love setting goals. I'm going to run 30 miles this month or 50 miles, whatever. I live
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
section. They do a lot of ultra marathons here in the mountains where I live. And I have friends that run 100 miles at a time or 50 miles at a time in the mountains. But for me, I have to have a goal when I'm training. So I go, okay, this is hard right now, but if I press through this vacation is going to look more epic on Instagram and I'm going to be able to finish and whatever else. I have to have it. I just don't go, oh, you know what? I should start running because I'll lose the
Right.
motivation. So what keeps
Right.
me motivated is I want to keep up, and I usually invite someone younger than me on these trips. So that keeps a little bit of the incentive to go. I'm doing a trip this weekend out to Utah. We're going up in the mountains, and I invited a guy who's 9 years younger than me. And
Mm,
so by inviting people who are younger than you, it forces you to push yourself so that you'll be able to
right.
keep up with them on your trip.
Yep. Got to step it up.
That's right. And I've also had my butt kicked by a 70-year-old man. I did a hiking trip right like a month before COVID happened. We did one of the most treacherous trails in America. And I was the youngest person there by 15 years. And we had three people in their 70s and they were kicking me. Like, I was like, what do you guys do to train? Because I trained all winter for this. But yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily set on age, but I do like to adventure with people of different ages and different fitness levels on purpose.
Yeah, that's awesome. Constant inspiration.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost done. I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire questions
Sweet.
just
All
for
right.
fun, and then we'll do it. Coffee, tea, or kombucha?
Oh man. I don't drink any of those three on a regular basis. I'm a hot cocoa guy.
Nice. All right, that's legit. That fits with the outdoors sitting around the campfire
Yeah.
thing too. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
like it cold.
I think that totally works. And final fun question: do you have a preferred? Um, All I can think of as athleisure, but like outdoorsy clothing brand.
Oh yeah, for
What do you
sure.
wear for hiking and stuff?
I wear prana everything.
Interesting.
Their pants are fantastic for rock climbing and for hiking. They're splash resistant and four-way stretch, and they've got vents so that you don't get hot in the places you often get hot while you're hiking. And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I that and then when I'm outdoors in the cold, the Duluth Trading Company fire hose stretch pants, you can do a lot riding snowmobiles or a lot of stuff I do outside in the mountains in the wintertime. So between those, I oh man, I live in those things. And then if it's
Wow.
water, Free Fly Apparel, they make a lot of bamboo stuff. I love
Wow.
Yeah, they were designed for like fly fishermen
Hmm,
to keep you covered from the sun. They got a lot of thin hoodies and stuff, but they're bamboo shorts. I'm wearing them right now. I live in these things 4 months a year.
that's fantastic. Well, Rev Wild people, take notes there. He had some good tips for you. Well, Ryan, man, what a great conversation. So good to meet you and chat with you. And you gave me some things to think about.
Good,
And
good. That's
so
what I'm
I
trying to
love it.
do.
Yeah, right on. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Scared to
scared to
Life,
life.
Ryan George.
And you can find me online. I don't make a dime off that book. All the sale proceeds go to help a charity that I believe in.
Nice.
But you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ryplane. That's at RYPLANE. And there's links to the audiobooks, the print books, my blogs. I post all about all these trips right after they happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're going to post some stuff down in the show notes of this
Sweet.
episode too. So
Sweet.
awesome. Well, thanks again, Ryan. God bless you, and keep adventuring.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching, and remember, this video was brought to you by Revelation Wellness Instructor Training Program. Do you love Jesus and have a passion for fitness and wellness? Or maybe you're tired of the roller coaster of obsessing over and neglecting your body, and you know there has to be more to fitness. Let us equip you to lead others to health and wholeness rooted in Jesus Christ through our faith-based fitness instructor training program. Go to our website to learn more and listen to testimonies of people just like you who are bringing hope and healing to their communities as fitness teacher gospel preachers. Click the link in the description of this video and download a packet to get your journey to health and wholeness through Christ started today.